Hi, my name is Chandler Winslow, and I am here with Nikki Green today, and we have the honor and privilege of interviewing a living legend, Laura Benitez Geisler, and we want to start off by thanking the Dallas Bar Association for this opportunity and GoransonBain Ausley as our sponsor of this interview. Before we dig in, I was going to give a little bit of background information about Laura. So she is a graduate of the Southern Methodist University Dedman School of Law. She's a partner at Sommerman, McCaffity, Quesada, and Geisler, where her practice focuses on representing individuals and families in personal injury and wrongful death claims. She is the past president of the Dallas Association of Young Lawyers, the Dallas Women Lawyers Association, and was the first Hispanic president of the Dallas Bar Association. As co-chair to the Equal Access for Justice campaign, Laura helped raise over $1.1 million to provide pro bono legal services to low-income Dallas County residents. Laura is on a lot of best lawyers lists. She has been named best lawyer in America, best attorneys in Texas, best lawyers in Dallas, and a Texas super lawyer. The Hispanic National Bar Association also honored Laura as its top lawyer under 40. The National Diversity Council named Laura as a top 50 multicultural lawyer and a top 50 woman lawyer in Dallas. It's a lot of great accolades. We are so excited and honored to have you here with us and to learn more about you.
It's an honor to be here.
So we know that you have a very close relationship with your mother and come from a very supportive family. Can you tell us a little bit about what it was like growing up in South Texas?
Yes, so my mother was absolutely the most wonderful person in the whole wide world, especially to me, but to many. She was a single mom. She raised me by herself in Corpus Christi, and she was just a very supportive, hardworking person, and her mantra always was, she wanted to set a good example for me. So she was my leader by example, just because of how she conducted herself, but that always stuck with me. And so, she worked hard. I was a latchkey kid. She transitioned from, being kind of an administrative position, kind of a lower level, a position that was, kind of more administrative, secretarial, and she worked her way up to upper management in the phone company. And I remember growing up that she would do things like, education was very important to her. She did not have a college degree, and she felt like that held her back. So she would always lament that, and so she signed up for night school, and I remember she would pick me up from school, pack a little dinner for me, and I'd go to class with her, and I'd sit in the back of the room while she was in class. And I think she was probably just hoping I wasn't going to be too noisy. I loved office supplies, so I would set up my little office supplies, my little Hello Kitty pen and stationery, and I would pretend like I was, I would take notes and color and go to class with her, and I enjoyed that. And so those sort of memories, a lot of memories like that, just the two of us, no matter what it was we were doing, it was just usually the two of us with a very supportive, family, but we didn't have any family that lived in town. So. For most of the time, it was just the two of us, and very special time. I miss her a lot.
So from growing up in Corpus Christi, what made you decide to go to law school, and what made you interested in the law?
I guess like many people who are lawyers or have gone to law school, as a kid, I was always told that, typically when I would be vocal about my opinions or trying to point out something I thought was wrong, I'd get you should be a lawyer, you like to argue. I didn't know any lawyers, and so all I knew is sort of what I saw on TV. I knew that lawyers were respected, and it was a venerated profession, and so I wanted to be a lawyer. And I think probably, there was a very short period of time, and I don't know why I had this idea that I wanted to be a dentist. And it took just a couple of, chemistry, biology courses to realize that was not where my aptitude was. So I went back to the idea of wanting to be a lawyer. And it was something I really always wanted to do, save and except for that one period of time in high school that I thought that dentistry was for me.
Yeah, there you go. It's good to explore options. So what was your first position out of law school?
So I started, I went to SMU, and while I was in my third year of school, I met Red Dog Jones, and it was at a conference of the professions. I didn't want to go. I didn't know what the event was, but I felt for some reason I really needed to make myself go to this. And we struck up a conversation, and he asked me what I was doing, and at that point in time I didn't know. And he's like, well, why don't you come by the office next Monday? I said, okay. And he calls me that Monday or whatever day of the week it was and said, well, why don't you meet me at 𝐏𝐫𝐤's for breakfast? So we meet at 𝐏𝐫𝐤's, and I'm not really certain that this is an interview at this point, or that he was just being generous with his time and providing advice and guidance. And so we're finishing up breakfast, and he said, well, I have to go meet with an expert. Do you want to come? I was like, okay. So I go with them. I meet the client. I meet the expert. I maybe asked a couple of questions, and he's like, I like those questions. Why don't you come back to the office next week? I'm like, okay. So again, I wasn't really sure if it was a job offer or what was going on, but I just decided I'm going to go with the flow. I showed up to Carter Jones Agnew Kruka, and I had an office. And I was like, okay, this is pretty good. And then, after a couple of weeks, I got a paycheck. It's like, this is
going
great.
That's great. Yeah, this is going great.
So while I probably, in retrospect, I was reluctant to ask questions, it all worked out. So
that's wonderful.
that was my first job, and so I stayed with him through my last year of law school, and after I took the bar and started as an associate with them, and we eventually years later were partners for a number of years. So
it's wonderful. So this is not your first time in front of a camera. But you did share with us a very interesting story. Can you tell us about the time when you were on a talk show as a civil rights expert?
yes, a civil rights expert. So when I was working for Red Dog in my third semester it was my last semester of law school, and he was taking on a civil rights case. It was a wrongful arrest, and it was a high-profile case. So I was taking a civil rights class at the time. And I remember that by the time that I'd finished taking the bar, I think we'd filed the lawsuit, my name got on the pleadings. My very first deposition was of a homicide detective in that case. The case resolved, and then a few, several months later, it was not that long after, the 𝐓𝐿𝐿𝐿 show called. And at the time, it was a nationally syndicated daytime talk show. And they wanted to interview our client about his wrongful arrest experience. And he didn't want to participate. And Red Dog was like, well, why don't you go? I said, well, our client doesn't want to go. And I talked to the producer, and they're like, why don't you come be our civil rights expert? I don't even think my law license was framed at this point in time. And so they fly me out to California, pick me up in a limousine, put me up in this beautiful room. I've got hair and makeup, and the funniest thing was, I studied in advance for this show. Like, I was studying for the bar exam. I think I read every single 1983 civil rights case there was, only to be asked questions like, well, how hard is it to sue the government? And then when the show aired, I'm watching it and very excited. And underneath my picture with my name is civil rights expert. Wow,
But you were at that point.
At that point, I could have probably taken a 1983 bar exam because I had studied so hard for that just to prepare for the show. But it was a great experience, and it was a wonderful opportunity. But yes,
I love
that was my first time in front of a real camera.
Wow. I mean, that's a great first.
It is.
So what is one of the biggest hurdles you've had to face or overcome during your legal career?
I think the times where I probably struggled the most are the times where I held myself back because I was scared or was afraid I would fail. And so I think getting out of my own way is probably the biggest hurdle I've had, or the one that I've noticed the most. The rest of them, you can kind of identify if it's something, external, I guess, obstacle. Those are easy to kind of, you find a way to negotiate around it. But I think the one that probably if I'm really reflective, is probably just getting in my own way and not taking risks when I should have, because those are the decisions I tend to regret more.
That's good advice.
It is. I was going to say, you sounds like that you've taken a lot of risks in the right way.
Sometimes involuntarily, but
Exactly, it was the best one.
So what is one of the funniest or most cringeworthy experiences you've ever had in the courtroom?
okay, this is cringeworthy, but it wasn't exactly in the courtroom. It was in the middle of a trial.
Okay.
And it was in the George Allen courthouse, and we were on a break, and I had to go to the ladies' room, and the doors at the George Allen courthouse floor, there are those metal doors, those locks, they didn't really line up right, and so you had to like get the lock, turned just right to make sure it stuck. So I just run into the ladies' room, and the door opens, and there's one of the jurors standing right there in front of me, while it was cringeworthy. Yes. I guess maybe it made me a little more human. She smiled at me every time I saw her after that, and we did win.
I was going to ask that.
We did. Yes, we did win, but that was cringeworthy in so many regards.
Yeah, it made you more relatable.
It was a very human moment.
That's so something that would happen to me too,
Yeah, me
I will
too.
tell you.
I would have felt it was.
Like, I'm still cringing thinking about it.
Sure. So I am going to focus on, I call it kind of the phase 2, which is your leadership. As Chandler indicated in the beginning of the intro, you have had a magnificent career and as a leader, and have inspired probably so many. And so my question to you is, what did it mean for you to become the Dallas Bar president? Like, how did that change I would say your career or just your life in general?
Well, I have to say it all started with my activities with the Dallas Association of Young Lawyers, which I loved. As a young lawyer, I was encouraged very strongly by Red Dog, who was obviously had a very big impact on my career. He was a past president of DAYL and the Dallas Bar, and so he volunteered me to sign up for the very first DAYL leadership class. And that really kind of set my trajectory into really enjoying bar service. I got to know a lot of people. I made some of my greatest friends. It just was fun. It was an outlet to be able to give back to the community. I was able to do community service work through activities organized by DAYL, and I liked it so much. I just sort of went up in the leadership, and from there I transitioned when I aged out and was no longer able to claim myself as a young lawyer.
Well,
I always tell people, you can always be a young lawyer if you just pay your dues. You can just but I went on to be active in the Dallas Bar Association, and it was the relationships. It was such a big draw for me. It was an outlet to give back to the community. And the ancillary benefit, I didn't realize at the time, especially when I was a younger lawyer, I was planting seeds for future relationships. I mean, some of my best friends I met through bar activities. The unanticipated benefit of getting business. I didn't really go into it with that as a motive, but it was actually just a great benefit that kind of came naturally over time. And as I grew up, as I grew from a young lawyer to a more seasoned lawyer, I guess I would say, I realized, and I came to appreciate the profession a lot more, because from the sort of bird eye view of leadership in an organization, especially as large as the Dallas Bar, it was really empowering and inspiring to see the great work that so many lawyers do, so many lawyers that are not in leadership positions, that are not pictured in head notes or anything like that. The people that are just doing it because they want to give back, because they want to enrich themselves as lawyers, make themselves better in their profession. There were just so many different aspects to see of lawyers in different capacities, lawyers who don't do work like I do, lawyers who have different interests than I do. And it just made me feel really good to be a lawyer. I really had a deeper appreciation for the profession, I think, because of it, and for lawyers in general. I mean, I actually really like lawyers.
That's a good thing because you meet some that don't.
I happen to love lawyers.
As the past president of the Dallas Bar Association, Dallas Association of Young Lawyers, and Dallas Women's Lawyers Association, you have also served as a mentor and legend to countless lawyers in the Dallas area. In particular, though, and we talked about this, you were instrumental in creating the DBA Entrepreneurs and Community Lawyers program. Can you tell us a little bit about your experience with building this program and its purpose?
Yes, so one of my, something I'm very, very proud of is the Entrepreneurs and Community Lawyering Program. And it's a legal incubator for lawyers who want to be solo small firm practitioners and who want to serve a modest means clientele. So in 2018, when I was president-elect, I was trying to think of what I wanted to do with my year as president. And I went to an ABA seminar and heard about these legal incubators. And at the time, Frank Stevenson, he had been past president of the State Bar, and the State Bar had a incubator program, and I wanted to bring one to Dallas. Not really appreciating the scope of the challenge I was taking on, I worked with Alicia Hernandez, most amazing Dallas Bar executive director, and tried to figure out how do we make this work for Dallas. So made several attempts to get partnerships with other organizations or schools, and I kind of received a lot of like, that's a really ambitious project, good luck, let us know how it goes. And so Alicia encouraged me. It was one of those things I was getting very frustrated, like how am I going to pull this off? It's, you know, I thought I'd bit off more than I could chew. And then I realized there are so many people that are in the Dallas Bar that wanted to see a program like this succeed. And the idea is it's a year-long program. The participants are selected based on their desire to really want to have their own business and to serve a modest means clientele. So throughout the year-long program, there's a lot of benefits and training they receive in order like how to run a business, how to market, you know, and some foundational type, you know, what you don't know, what you don't know, you don't know what you don't know. I guess I'm trying to say that. Trying to open their eyes to all the things that you might not know when you're first starting out or when you're first starting a practice. And having had been a solo practitioner before, I know how hard it is to run a business. Mm-hmm. I love being a lawyer, but not love being a business person. Right. Mm-hmm. And so we were able to get some grant money, hire a part-time director, 𝐧𝐫𝐭𝐞, who is amazing. She is the program director now. We were able to kind of pull it together, and the price of admission for the lawyers is they have to perform at least 150 pro bono hours. And so to me, I loved the idea of creating a project that would, one, benefit lawyers, and also benefit the people who really need it. Mm-hmm, and so to me, being able to put something like that together, as Sadra and I joke, we're kind of co-moms. I'm sort of like, I birthed the baby and she's raising the kids. So it's been really amazing to see I guess we're on our third class now, but to see, number one, all the people that they've helped through their pro bono hours, and to see these young lawyers, and they're not all necessarily young in age, but maybe young in starting their own business, or taking it from that perspective. To see how they flourish and how their businesses have thrived. And, you know, I think some have been really very, very successful and very, you know, just gotten a lot out of it. And I think a lot of, you know, some of them probably maybe didn't get as much out of it in terms of, you know, this is what they're going to do for the rest of their career. But I think sometimes you learn by process of elimination. Mm-hmm. And, you know, if they helped people along the way, that to me is the most important thing. If they learn something about themselves and what they are good at, what they like, what they don't like, and how they want to conduct themselves as professionals, I feel like it's just a great, great program. So.
Well, and what wonderful timing, thinking about that happening right before the pandemic broke out. And I'm sure there are a lot of people who are having career changes. So I'm sure teaching people how to hang their own shingle is just very helpful for our entire community.
And not just that, I call it the gift that keeps on giving. Because even like you said, one of the things that I think was critical is there's a business aspect. And so let's just say that being a lawyer is not, they're in destination and they decide to do something else. Those skills will travel. And as you said, families and others that have received pro bono legal services have been helped. So it's a win-win. And so I think it's great that you created such a fantastic program that continues to give and to create mentors, because once you get that information, you can take it and share it with others. And that leads me into my next question. So throughout this interview, I've heard you mention some of your mentors and just how they have shaped your life and how you've been inspired or encouraged and also, blessed through some of those opportunities that have come through that. And so when you think about the word mentor, what would you say are the most effective or necessary traits to be an effective mentor?
Lead by example. That would be kind of the lesson my mother taught me. But I think being a good mentor, I think there are different types of mentors. There could be the mentor you've never met that you can see from afar and you want to, you admire and respect them and learn from what they do. There's the, more traditional mentor-mentee relationship where it's, typically someone older and younger and they come to you for advice. But I think the most effective mentoring relationships are the ones that are organic and where it's a two-way street. I mean, mentoring is a two-way street. Being a mentee is a two-way street. It's a relationship. So building on a relationship requires that you listen, that you can give advice, but you can't tell someone how to live their life, and respect the choices that they make and be supportive of them, of someone else when maybe they stumble, or maybe it's a learning lesson, but also still kind of being a cheerleader. And, it depends on the nature of the relationship. I think there's all kinds of different effective and great mentoring relationships. Everyone's different, but I think it's very core, it's very essence. It's just maintaining a relationship and just truly caring, and in it's got to be a two-way street.
That's good advice.
It's very good advice. And I'm not a new attorney. I guess I could maybe do an application with young lawyers and not just put my age on there. And so as long as I pay my dues, right?
I love that.
You guys aren't watching this, so. One of the things that I think is really important as well with respect to just service as a whole, like you said, and leading by example, or making sure that you are taking care of yourself, right? Self-care is important. What would you say you do to celebrate yourself, or like if you wanted to take a break? How do you treat yourself?
I like to travel.
Okay.
I love playing with flowers, and I love cooking. So if I could get a job where I'm practicing law someplace fabulous in south of France, playing with flowers and cooking, I would be so happy.
That sounds like the dream.
But sometimes I just have to settle with, I'll go to Central Market, buy some groceries for the week, and play with flowers when I get home.
That's great too.
I was going to say, combine them all together.
Put on some music, have a glass of wine, it's a day.
What is your favorite meal to cook?
Oh gosh, I like trying complicated things, and it's something, there's not necessarily one dish. I like the process of cooking. I don't like to cook because I need to eat something, or, cooking for sustenance is obviously necessary sometimes, but I like the process of cooking. I like the process because I hate going to the grocery store, but buying flowers at the end, I'll come, buy some flowers, I'll put on some music, and then just sort of the going through chopping and the whole process of it is what I find good for my well-being.
That's meditation. It's meditative.
It is. But do you find that after you went through that process and did all of the cooking, you're no longer hungry? Does that happen to you? Or no?
Oh, yes. It's the process.
Get exhausted, yeah. So we have heard, we've focused on your leadership. We've talked about your career. And so my question to you is, what is the greatest accomplishment of your career? Because the leadership and your career are kind of intertwined, right? And so what would you say is your greatest accomplishment? And what do you hope is your lasting legacy? What would you define as that?
Oh, gosh. Well, lasting legacy. I would like to be remembered as someone who was a good lawyer, who cared about her clients, who did a good job, was always professional. I mean, that's sort of really, just want to leave, whatever I leave behind, I just want to have a positive impact on the people that I came across along the way. Whether it's, you know, my paralegal, hopefully I've been a good employer to her. As a lawyer, I hope that my clients feel like I helped them. As a, you know, bar leader, I hope that I did a good job and led by example, that I learned from my mistakes. I mean, I've been blessed to have a lot of really, really great cases in my life. I've had really big, you know, complex cases. I've had cases where there's a lot of money involved. But at the end of the day, the ones I find the most rewarding are not always the biggest in that sense. It's where I feel like I really helped someone. And that to me is, that's how I'd like to be remembered, as someone who was kind and did a good job.
I think that you have already done that personally, but thank you for sharing that. In addition to being a skilled litigator and bar leader, which we've talked about, you are also a mom. And so this question, I'm a mom, and I know there will be other moms that are watching this. And a lot of times we're told as attorneys, especially ambitious attorneys, right? You cannot have it all. So my question to you is, you have managed to maintain an incredibly close relationship to your daughter. You've done a fantastic job in being a leader and in your career. What would you say was key to maintaining that work-life balance? How do you manage that? And what advice would you give to us moms?
You know, sometimes there is no balance.
Yeah.
I mean, there's definitely the times where I, you know, was in the middle of a big case or a big trial and just didn't have time to take my daughter to school and had to rely on the help and support of others. And sometimes I, you know, went the other way and like, you know what, I'm going to take the day off and spend it with my daughter. I think at the end of the day, I don't know if there's balance. I just try to have grace with myself whenever I'm not in balance. And I think over time, I used to feel sort of a slave to my schedule. And then I realized I probably spent more time worrying about the things I wasn't doing or getting done than I should have. And that was probably when I realized that, and I still have to remind myself of that a lot of times. Once you let that go, like, okay, worrying is not going to fix it. I'm either going to be here and be present, you know, spending time with my daughter, my family, or doing something I like, or, you know, it's just, that's helped me get through. Again, balance, not always, but I realized that I probably spent a lot more time, especially as a younger lawyer, worrying about all the things I wasn't getting done, or worrying about whether I was doing a good enough job, as opposed to just focusing on, just do it. Just
Right.
do it and decide this is the time I'm going to spend doing this is the time I'm going to spend doing that. I tried to, when Erica was little, I tried to incorporate her in, you know, when I was president of Young Lawyers, I would have her come say the Pledge of Allegiance, you know, during the judicial dinners, things like that. I tried to, you know, bring her in so she could see what I did. I don't know if that's why she tells people she never wanted to be a lawyer because they work too hard. But she's doing great. She's not a lawyer. She is living in New York, and I miss her so much.
Oh.
Well, that is wonderful advice, because that makes me feel better too. Just hearing, like, sometimes you have to have your kid taken to school by someone else, and that's okay. Yeah. So
right, and then don't spend the rest of the day worrying about the fact that you didn't.
Yeah,
Right.
Exactly.
Yeah, I think grace, definitely, because I think we are harder on ourselves than really needs to be. And so thank you. That was some good advice as well. See how much I'm learning here? So let me ask you, what would be, if you could talk to Laura, the new attorney, what would Laura, the experienced attorney, say to that new attorney? What would be the advice that you would give that attorney, a new attorney, just starting out?
Oh, look fear in the face. Because the times I feel like I got the most reward, my first job, you know, with Red Dog. I showed up, I was very uncomfortable, I didn't want to go, and I just made myself go. All I had to do was show up. So I think there are probably, you know, various times throughout my life or throughout my career where I think fear held me back. And so that would be the one thing I would like my younger self to know. It's okay, just try. You know what? It's not that big a deal. You know?
With respect to your career, did you ever think that you would be practicing a different area of law than what you currently practice?
No, I just was very fortunate that I found the right fit from the outset. I love being a plaintiff's personal injury lawyer. I've had some other cases, and I have some cases involving constitutional issues, but I really like working with individuals. I like feeling like I've helped someone. By the time they've come to me, the harm's already been done, and so I just see my role as to kind of help shepherd them through a difficult time, and so that's very rewarding for me personally. Some people might think I've got one of my best friends from law school, she's a family law lawyer, and I'm like, I don't know how you do that. She's like, I don't know how you do what you do. It's just I happen to find the right fit, so no, I would prefer not to do anything else.
Awesome.
So as long as the legislature doesn't keep taking away the rights of injured plaintiffs and making it more difficult for them to get their day of justice, then I'll keep doing what I'm doing.
And what is the most satisfying win you've had in the courtroom?
I once represented a man who was rendered a quadriplegic after he fell off a ladder. It was a workplace incident.
Wow.
And a lovely man, young, had a family, 2 children. We were getting ready for trial and got poured out on summary judgment, went up on appeal. Then we were able to try it, and we tried it almost all the way through and finally settled. But it was the nicest family. They really, it made the money made a difference in their lives because, you know, they had like a makeshift ramp for him to get in and out of his house. He was living with his brother and sister-in-law. And so just the ability to have a vehicle they could travel in, to get the proper medical equipment, like I knew that made a difference in the quality of their life. And they waited so long, they were so gracious and such kind people, and so that felt really, really good. But there are other cases, or you know, maybe not as big in terms of monetary amount, or the injuries weren't as catastrophic, but where someone just really needed someone to help them or to believe in them, to hear them. And so when I have those experiences with clients, those are the most rewarding to me, because sometimes people just need to feel like they've been heard, and that they're, you know, that someone just cared enough to take on their case and help them through a difficult period. And so those are really the ones that I find the most rewarding.
So, speaking of rewarding, let's flip. So, as an attorney, we never want to lose. No one wants to lose. But
it's more fun to win.
It is, and we all pride ourselves on winning. But every now and then, you take a loss. And as an attorney, I know when I had my first loss, it was very hard to deal with, because you're thinking about the person that you're representing yourself. What would you say was your first loss, and how did you handle that and get back up?
Well, there's always challenges. You know, the competitive side of me will come out and, you know, just want to win. And you realize sometimes if it's a you know, an adversarial proceeding and someone's going to win, someone's going to lose, or you're going to compromise, sometimes someone's going to lose. And while it's disappointing, you know, there's other cases, there's other opportunities. You know, I feel, you know, the most pain, I think, sometimes when I can't help someone, or for the client where, you know, I feel like I let them down. Fortunately, I haven't had a whole lot of those situations, but it's still, even if I have to turn down a case after I've worked on it for a little bit, there's still that disappointment that comes with not being able to help someone. But I can't help everybody, and I can't solve every problem, and so I have to remember that as well, and do what I can to make a difference and win the next one.
Yeah.
Because it is more fun to win.
It is. No one likes to lose. Let's see here. We've talked about your career. We've talked about growing up. We've talked about your leadership. Let's talk about what would you be doing if you were not an attorney?
Oh, I would love to be an investigative journalist.
Interesting.
I like writing, but I like the investigative component of it. So I always thought if I weren't a lawyer, I'd want to be an investigative journalist. Again, I don't know exactly what goes into it. It sounds like something I would like to do. I've never explored it deep enough to go, oh yeah, that's probably not at all for me.
I feel like that's law and researching and getting down to the fact. I feel like that's that makes sense.
It's
an easy transition.
Well, I think there's some similarities, but when you're really investigating into, a case and theories of liability and where digging for the
In your line of law, though, I would think, yeah, that is a critical component when you're doing preparing for the case. So that's an easy transition. So I could see that definitely.
And I do like that aspect of it.
You did like that aspect. Yeah. Early in your interview, you talked about you didn't know any attorneys, and so other than your TV attorneys, who would you say was your favorite TV attorney growing up?
Oh gosh. I don't know that I have a good answer for that. I'd have to think about it. I don't know. I always like the stories where the lawyers sort of fallen from the ashes and rising
above,
like a phoenix from the ashes.
Right. I guess maybe it's because I just watched Lincoln Lawyer, but sort of
Oh, I love that. Have you saw Lincoln Lawyer on the Netflix series?
Yes.
Are you watching that? Okay.
So maybe that's why I'm thinking of TV lawyers. So it's the most recent one I saw.
Who does a better job, the lead in the Netflix series or Matthew McConaughey?
They're both good. They're just different.
Okay, good.
I just happen to like Matthew.
I do. He was the best in A Time to Kill. That's probably like my favorite, especially his little closing statement, which you learn, when you get out of law school, that you probably would not have been able to do that in real life. So, yeah, lesson learned.
That's the drama of the movies.
It is, isn't it? Always.
So, what's one of your fondest or favorite or funniest memories from being in law school at SMU?
I actually really liked law school. I mean, not necessarily. I mean, it was brutal. But I sort of enjoyed it. It sort of felt like, being in the trenches with other people. And so, that part of it I really enjoyed. I was in a new city. It was something that was very challenging, and maybe it's just because time has faded the memory of how brutal it was, but I really did enjoy it.
So we talked about what your advice to your younger self would be. Mm-hmm. What would your advice be to young lawyers in general?
To remember that it is a practice and a profession. Practice part of it means that you're not always going to get it right, and you just keep trying. And the profession is a component, and the way I kind of view that is it's so important to maintain your reputation, to be true to your word, to be the bigger, better person, even when you don't want to be, not to react in kind whenever you're dealing with a difficult person on the other side. I think those are really, really important things to keep in mind, because I think as a profession, we've got to self-police ourselves in terms of our conduct, but also I think just as human beings, we have to be kind and respectful to other people. And even though, again, I'm in litigation, so I tend to have more adversarial situations. At the end of the day, we're all just trying to do our job and represent our clients as best we can. And so I don't have a lot of patience for people who try to make it unnecessarily difficult or adversarial because they think it's going to get them somewhere. I've always found that being kind and professional just will get you so much further. I think it really does pay to be a nice person, and I do have one story. When I was probably maybe a 7 or 8 year lawyer, I had a case with a notoriously difficult opposing counsel, and I was deposing his client, and in the middle of this deposition, he just blows up and started yelling at me, berating me. It was just, it threw me off. And I had a young associate with me and a female, and we're the only two females in the room. And it was just outburst, clearly designed to throw me off my game, which it did for a moment. And so I had to stop the deposition and kind of go collect myself. I'm like, okay, I'm just going to try and keep it together. I've got to be an example to my associate here. I go out in the hall and I'm trying to figure out how I'm going to handle this situation. I think, we go back in and resume the deposition, and the obnoxious lawyers, there's several lawyers there. Yes. His client was being deposed, and I think his client was so horrified by the way his lawyer treated me, he went out of his way to be helpful throughout his deposition, just pointing out all that. I mean, he just went out of his way to be helpful. By the end of the case, I will say that the defendant that, after that, the opposing lawyer actually was better behaved for the rest of the case. We settled it at mediation. He went out of his way to tell my client what a fine job I did representing her. His client friended me on Facebook. He was a property owner, and the next time I ran across him, one of his tenants, I knew what kind of insurance he required them to have, and I couldn't get him to the person I wanted to see to respond. I called him up, and he faxed over a copy of the insurance policy. Wow. And the other defendant, who was not represented, hired me to represent him in another matter. And I thought, it just pays to be nice. The bigger, better person sometimes. And so I've taken that lesson to me. I don't think I realized at the time, but looking back, it's sort of something I think that all lawyers should aspire to, be the bigger, better person when you can. It's not always easy, but I think it does pay off. And in that particular case, it just happened to pay off in a number of ways. But I do remember thinking, oh my God, I'd never had anyone talk to me the way that this man did. It was crazy, but it was not necessary. It did not advance his client's interest. And I think that at the end of the day, his client went out of his way to help me.
Yeah, it backfired.
It did.
Was it videoed? Can you go back and watch it?
Yes. I don't know where the video is, but I think it'd be nice.
You should use it as an instructional video.
Inspiration.
Yeah, what not to do and how to react.
Yes. So advice to younger lawyers, always be the bigger, better person.
Yes. I love that.
Take the high road.
Even when it's difficult sometimes.
Yes.
So we thought that we would play a little game of this or that, because we want to get to know you as a whole. This interview is great. We've learned some great things, but I always say it's the things that you don't have to think about that really reveal that your character. So we're going to play this or that. I'm going to let Chandler kick it off with a couple of the questions.
All right. Would you rather be the smartest person in the world or the wealthiest person in the world?
Smartest.
Okay. Android or iPhone?
iPhone.
Of course. I tell everybody Androids mess up people's lives.
I've never had an Android. They look kind of cool, but
Would you rather be able to see into the future or change your past?
Oh gosh. I don't know, because I don't believe in regrets. I just believe you learn a lesson and move on. But seeing into the future, I don't know. I think
that is a tough one.
That is a tough one.
That's a tough one. I'll take a pass on that one. Okay. Live in the present.
There we go. Perfect. I love it.
Now this one is very critical. Perfect teeth or perfect hair?
Teeth. Okay.
You have both. I mean, you're very blessed.
There are things you can do with hair, but teeth are just a little harder to work with.
That's true. That's true. A week of summer or a week of winter?
Summer. Well, Texas summer?
That's a good
qualified question.
Yes. Wherever you'd like to be.
Colorado summer, I think.
Yeah, that'd probably be good. Drama movie or comedy movie? Or neither.
A dramedy, I don't know.
A dramedy, a mixture of both. Yeah. That works.
Would you rather give a gift or receive one?
Give.
Awesome. So Laura, we are just so grateful for all that you have contributed and all that you have done for the legal profession, the Dallas Bar Association, Dallas Young Lawyers, just all of us in Dallas, period. And we just want to thank you for taking out the time to not only do this interview, but to get to know us as well better. And so we are grateful and appreciative. Are there any last words you would like to leave with the audience?
Well, I would like to thank you both because I had so much fun when we met, and just having a conversation like this with other people that are just, lawyers. It doesn't even have to be like mine. It was just fun to get to know you both. And so that's part of the great thing about being part of the bar. You get to meet other people. And like I said, I love lawyers. So thank you for the opportunity very much.
Thank you. Pleasure was ours.
Thank you.